Too?
Oh, no, you're good.
Okay.
Well, fuck your God, God damn it. This is episode, 49 of
Dude.
the Odd Atheist Friends?
Why do you always question it? I write it on the thing.
Because I am a gigantic jackass who is unsure of everything he does, other than pretty much saying, fuck your God, God damn it.
I'm glad you're very committed to that one because it's tattooed on your butt now.
It's literally tattooed on my ass. Yes, it is.
Oh my God.
So this is Matthew of the Odd Atheist Friends, and you know Eric in a flyover state. And
yeah.
the giggle you may have heard to our 3 listeners who might be listening to this later on over iTunes.
It wasn't me regressing in puberty.
Is Marie the Elephant of the Everybody Skeptical podcast. Hi, Marie.
Everyone's Agnostic podcast.
Everyone's Agnostic. Oh, God damn it.
All good. Fuck your God.
I'm sorry. Fuck you. Oh, she said it.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
So, Marie, welcome to OAF podcast. How you doing? And do we have a P-tape on you to get you on here? What's going on?
A P-tape. I am just so flattered that you think I'm that important that you need to, like, have shit on me. Because, like, I'm new to this world. And so, like, you guys had what? You said episode 49? Well, I've only done 4. Personally.
Oh, wow.
Well, your 4 are probably better than our 49.
49. Most definitely.
They might be, but I jumped into a podcast that was already functioning for the last 4 years, so I'm riding someone else's coattails.
Oh.
Yeah. So
we have no idea what the hell we're doing. At least I don't. I have zero clue.
You got Phil Ferguson on and got him to swear and stuff, so I'm impressed.
We did?
Yeah.
That was a good episode.
That was super fun to listen to. I was like, I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be great.
That's like 1 good episode out of 10, I'm going to be honest.
Oh, really?
No.
That's really honest of you.
Ooh, I hope I'm kidding. I don't know.
So tell us about your podcast, please. What's it about and how long has it been on and how did you get involved with it and all that stuff, please.
I've slept with so many people. Like,
good.
Same. Not for the podcast, just for fun.
Yeah. So let's see. So I make this as long of a story as possible. Just kidding. But I was raised Christian and started doubting when I was about 13, but never fully got out until I was in maybe like my mid-20s. And during that time, it was a very tumultuous, traumatic experience because for every doubt I had, I tried to overcompensate by getting that much more zealous. So I got into some pretty extreme shit and like moved to Mexico and stuff and was a missionary down there for a couple of years and got into the whole purity culture movement and just a lot of really damaging doctrine. And eventually I did get out, but then like mid-20s to mid-30s, and I'm 36 now, was just kind of a decade of trauma, like of not of trauma, but of the fallout of my experience in Christianity. And so I've been spending a lot of time recovering from it and trying to get my bearings back. And only in the last few years have I finally kind of found my own strength and found enough healing to start to be able to kind of look around me and see the world around me. And this is kind of what we were talking about before we started recording, that I get really anxious listening to the news because of my anxiety disorder. And so for many years, I've had to kind of hunker down and just kind of take care of my own mental health. And sometimes that makes me feel bad. But that's another tangent. We could talk about it later. But point being that I spent many, many years after Christianity. They don't tell you about that part. Like they say, oh, the deconversion part is the best part because now you're done and now you're out. But we talk a little bit less about the fallout of it, the recovering from it. Like, okay, great. You don't believe that you can't have sex with people before marriage. However, you still have all that doctrine that you learned as a kid that is all dirty, nasty, bad. And that stuff doesn't go away right away. So there are a lot of resources out there for ex-believers to work through the trauma or the indoctrination that is still lingering, or the fallout of whatever their experience was. And so when I was looking for those resources, maybe about 5 years ago, I came across, not 5 years ago, it doesn't really matter, but it was maybe about 2 years ago, actually. I came across the Everyone's Agnostic podcast. And it's a podcast that's been on the air for about 4.5 years. And it was started by Cass Midgley. And he lives in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. His address is and you can go and visit him. And so he has got a skill. He's got a skill for pulling together narratives and creating themes and just kind of making this whole fucking chaotic ex-Christian chaos and trauma and distilling it down into this nice little nugget that's like, yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I'm going through. And he's got a skill. And so he interviews former Christians, not big names. We seek to talk to everyday people and to talk about their stories because their stories matter. And we seek to have a wide variety of representation across, genders, across orientations, across expressions, across races, across abilities, to hear everyone's stories and how they've been affected and how they work through this stuff. And that's basically the show. And so when I heard the show 3 years ago, I was like, I need to be on this. I need to tell my story. So I emailed Cass and I was like, so yeah, you need to have me on your show because I really have a lot of shit that I want to talk about. So I was on the show as a guest and I was terrified. And it was the best thing in my life ever, like going on air and just being like, I'm going to stand up and say this trauma that happened to me and unapologetically, and I'm going to tell you what happened. And it was really cathartic, and I got a taste of it, and I just wanted to talk more. And so 2 years later, his co-host moved out of Tennessee, and so he was kind of flying on his own and just kind of overburdened with lots of things in his life. And so I messaged him, and I was like, hey, remember me? I'm really good at things. Maybe you should let me join you, because as a career, I'm an executive assistant. So I'm like crazy organized, and I can help you with your social media and help you schedule interviews and all sorts of shit. Like, take it off your back, because he has given me so much through the show, so much healing. And this has been like across the board the most impactful resource for me as I've recovered from the bullshit of religion and my experience of it. So he's like, okay, yeah, I would love to have some help. And so I jumped on board, and then I was like, this is all fun and everything, typing things on a computer, but maybe I also want to maybe talk. And so I was like, hey, can I try out, maybe being a co-host, I guess, like whatever. And he was like, sure. And so I ended up starting to co-host. And so the last 4 episodes have had me as a co-host. And every time that I go through another hosting experience, I fall more and more in love with myself and with my voice and talking about my experience and feeling like I have something to say and that I'm worthwhile. And it's been a huge self-esteem booster, and I feel like I'm trying to think of any celebrity I actually have respect for. Maybe, I don't know, Conan O'Brien seems pretty cool. Like, I just feel like I'm working for like someone amazing. Like, and it's not about Cass, it's more about the mission of the show and what we're doing with the show. Every day I wake up and I'm like, holy shit, I'm the co-host of Everyone's Agnostic. I don't know how life can get much better than this. So I'm super psyched. That's my long answer anyway to what the podcast is, how I got involved, and what we're doing with it. And so I'm just kind of here to talk about whatever we want to talk about, and also kind of plug my show for any of the listeners who feel like it's something that they might be looking for. Or if you find my voice really pretty, you can listen to it, whatever.
I've listened to a few episodes of the show, and I love your little blurbs that you've been doing. Those are great.
The monologues at the beginning?
The monologue. Yes, thank you, because I can never remember like a word. And so
words are hard.
Words are hard. So are names and names of shows. I'm super sorry.
I wish we never developed language.
But yeah, so I've really enjoyed listening to your viewpoints on the show, and your monologue at the beginning has always been really great. I've listened to a few episodes, probably 10 or 15, something like that. And you guys had Molly on Mormon on, who's a friend of our show.
Oh.
And so, yeah,
Molly.
We love Molly. Molly's a super cool lady and a chickie, and we've had her on the show. Like, she's our champion, like 4 or 5 times she's been on the show.
4 or 5 times, yeah.
So,
wow.
But yeah, Molly's our #1 returning guest champion so far.
Awesome.
Yeah, and so I like listening to the conversation that you guys, well, not you because you weren't on the show, but the conversation that was had, and I really like how the conversations get pulled apart and details get done, and so there's been a lot of really cool people that has been on that show. So yeah, it's. I'm sorry I found you guys late, like only a few weeks ago. So, yeah. So, but I've binge listened to a bunch of episodes in the last 2 weeks or so.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's not a show that's like, oh, you need to be on time with it. Like, we recognize it's kind of it can serve as an archive that people are going to discover it at different times and just kind of binge through it. And then at a certain point, people are just kind of done too. Like, I'm invested in this show, but I'm not invested in people liking it forever.
Yeah.
Like, you need it when you need it, and some episodes are for you and some aren't. And then sometimes you just fucking move on with your life and you don't feel the need to hash shit out anymore. So, like, I don't have a whole lot of ego around that. Like, it's just a resource for whoever needs it. I want to promote it, but not to, like, at the exclusion of everything. Like, literally everyone needs to listen to this. They don't. Like, just listen to it when you want to, whatever.
Yeah, we're definitely not everybody's cup of tea because, well, we curse and we talk about dumb shit, and literally we just sit here and talk about nothing sometimes.
Yeah.
And so, not everybody's going to be into like the free form podcasts and that kind of stuff. And that's great if you are, and that's great if you're not. Like we say to our 3 listeners, if you listen, great. It's better if you support us on Patreon because, Eric will do things like draw your picture for you, and you get your name mentioned. Trevor, Molly. Hi, Trevor, Molly. Those are our 2 top patrons. But yeah, so, of course, we always want to thank our patrons, but we always want to thank those 2 patrons.
Thanks, Trevor and Molly. I love you.
So, but yeah, so, you get a little stuff like that. But if, like, what was it, Eric? Like last week we had like those 2 or 3 people who didn't like one of our posts, and they're like, your post, your show is Trump friendly, unfriended you. It's like, did you bother to read the fucking post?
Yeah, people can't read. It's a problem.
So there was this picture of like, Obama gave the Medal of Freedom to Ellen, and then Trump gave a Medal of Freedom to a Vietnam guy. And if you read through it, it actually says that the draft dodger is giving a medal to a veteran. What the fuck? And so, like, other people were like, I can't believe this page is pro-Trump. It's like, wow, you didn't bother to fucking read, did you? And if you read it, you didn't understand it. So, like, your comprehension level was, like, super fucking low. So, I don't know. But it's just like, yeah, we love Ellen and hate fucking Trump. How could you get we love Trump from that?
Yeah, we switch sides.
Yeah, people, social media is crazy. People just want to fight. And
honestly, yeah, I really think they do. So you were a former fundamentalist Christian like myself.
Oh, you were too?
Oh my God, don't get me started.
Story again.
Do you know Plymouth Brethren?
No.
It's basically half a step off of Quaker. So,
okay.
But I don't know about you. Maybe it's just because I'm the kind of person that I am, but I am mad that I got lied to for all those years.
Mm-hmm.
I am super pissed off about it. You know, I'm sitting here drinking a Sam Adams because I like Sam Adams lagers.
Nice.
The people in my church would have been saying things about me and to me because I'm sitting here drinking a beer. But yet the Bible says, don't get drunk, not drink. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like they always took it like a step over.
Hey,
You
so
know?
guess what? The Bible says a lot of things and they all contradict each other. So this bullshit about don't drink is absolutely 100% false. The Bible says a lot of things.
Yeah.
There's no way to come up with one conclusion about what the Bible thinks about something. Just read the fucking Old Testament. That God is crazy.
Did you have to wear like one of those little doilies on your head?
No,
You know what I'm talking about?
no, I wasn't into that like super conservative, like Amish-esque sort of thing. Like, no.
I don't know what to call them. I always called them doilies because that's kind of what they look like.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. It's like a Jewish thing that they wear the I can't remember what the names are, but yeah, no, I was not neck kind of crazy. Like I was a Protestant, sort of like Baptist sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
So like we had like rock music in our.
Oh my God! You had live musicians in your church.
Yeah.
We would have been calling you the devil.
Acapella of the devil.
Acapella only, maybe a guitar for the children's lessons. You know, for the children's services. You know.
Wow, you were more fucked than I was, dude. I give you that.
Everybody hears. Everybody here's heard the story. I was 19 the first time I had sex.
Hey, congratulations! I was 21.
Wow.
I was 14.
Oh, ouch. Is that a good thing? Are you happy about that?
I don't know. It's a separate story.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I'm just saying, though. I mean, it's like, and I felt kind of bad about it at the same time, you know, and so I'm just so trying to get over all your religious upbringing, all that kind of stuff. It really is an ongoing process. I mean, I've shirked a lot of it, but I still see sometimes like, you know, like I look at how somebody's dressing and I'm be like, oh, like, wait a minute, why did I think that? You know what I'm saying? It's like loose, you know, or, you know, sometimes, you know, you get stuck on ideas of sexuality. That's a big one. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, it's just like you just got to get over yourself and over your view, and it's always a struggle.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and
the problem is that a lot of the stuff that I think that we're trying to overcome is in Christian culture, but it is also embedded in the national culture. So I think that doesn't really help us developing. You know, like for example, I'm polyamorous, and of course Christianity is against that. Oh yes, I know. Gas. How dare I do ethical things with multiple people? Ugh.
And how dare you like women as well as men? Oh my God.
So that's not a thing, but yes, I don't understand what you're saying, but yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
That's the first time. And when Christians hear polyamorous, they hear bisexual and they hear slut. That's all they fucking hear.
And they
whether or not
asking questions like slut. Okay, great. Okay, so you think I'm a slut. So what does that mean? Oh, that means that you are having sex with multiple people. Uh-huh. Okay. And what does that mean? That means that you're just a fornicator. Uh-huh. Okay. What does that mean? And you just kind of keep drilling it down and it goes to, the Bible says you shouldn't. Uh-huh. Where does it say that? Also, why is the Bible a source of knowledge and not your reasoning skills and basic ethics?
You're a piece of chewed bubblegum and no man will ever love you.
People love bubblegum.
Oh my God.
I can't tell you how many times I heard that shit when I was a teenager.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
the metaphor that we got was they took 2 pieces of construction paper, glued it together like this, let it kind of dry a little bit. Like this is what it looks like when you have sex with someone else. You know, you are bound to them with glue, like it's just an emotional, physical connection. And so then when you rip them apart, or you break up or whatever, and you're going to, so now there's little pieces of each other on there, and so then you glue onto another person, rip apart, and by the end, you had a shitty piece of construction paper, you know, and then that's your heart, you know. So like that was their message, that the more sex that you have with multiple people, the more, you know, your heart is broken and hurt and whatever. Whereas now I'm like, I would love to find a partner who is sexually experienced, because I mean, then you're gonna have better sex probably. So like,
Yeah.
I mean, no offense to virgins and the inexperienced, but it's not like that. It's not like virgins are the best. Virgins are the best because you think you possess their sexuality. That's what you think.
Bingo. One of the most gross ones I heard was that somebody had a cup. They lightly spit into the cup, passed it to the first student, and said, "Everybody spit, pass it around. The last person takes a drink." And that's what it's like when you have sex with multiple partners. I'm like,
Well,
ew.
that could be a good lesson for learning about STDs. Because, I mean, you do pass that stuff on.
But that's not taking into account, like, you know, the difference between abstinence-only education and real sex education about, like, being safe while you have sex.
Yeah.
You can have sex and not, you know what I'm saying? And then, you know, you can do stuff like wash afterwards, and that will stop passing the spit back and forth. I mean, you know, I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you know, there's all kinds of ways. I mean, you know, what about the people who are just serially monogamous? I mean, would they call them a chewed up piece of bubble gum? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the funny thing, because like one of the big things that I notice is when someone has a vagina and they choose to have multiple partners, they are criticized for being like used up. But if they had one partner and we're having the same amount of sex, they wouldn't be criticized for that. Like if I had sex with one guy 100 times, no one would care. If I had sex with 100 guys, one time each, people would be like, holy shit, that's way too much. But it's the same amount of sex. So it's really fucking weird to me.
It's the amount of partners, and it also goes back to the kind of double standard, too. I mean, you know, you go back to the Bible, to the Old Testament, when they say, you know, it's like, if a guy rapes a virgin, he gives his father basically $500 in silver, is what the math works out to in today's money, and then you get a wife. What?
Yeah, it's
You're gonna.
Diet.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, no.
I'm serious. I wish I was fucking joking.
No, I know.
Where
you bought it. I like that. I mean, I don't like that, but I like that like for a title.
You fuck it, you buy it.
But I'm just saying, I mean, so you've got a guy who rapes a woman, and then law happens, you know, where it's found out he is forced to give the father the equivalent of $500 in today's money, and then he's got to marry her. Oh, you don't think there's not going to be physical, mental, and psychological abuse to that person? Come on, wow.
Well,
but this,
there's also another rule about like if you rape a woman, how does it go? Like, and she accuses you, and it's found that you did rape her. Yeah, then you have to marry her. Maybe that's the same one that you're talking about. Like, so. Or no, oh fuck, I can't remember. It's all very fucked up, and no matter what the scenario is, the woman always loses out. And that's precisely because the Old Testament times of the Jewish community, and probably a lot of the world maybe at the time, you know, it was misogynist, it was patriarchal, and that's what times were, and it's sad that those were the times were like that. But that doesn't excuse us to look back at that and be like, well, that's the way to do it. No, we're actually smarter now, and we actually do know that all people are equal, and you don't get to own other people's bodies or their sexualities or their behaviors. And so maybe let's move the fuck on and get caught up on the fact that we're all equal.
Yeah.
Why would you ever look at the Bible and say, oh my God, they really figured out ethics? No, you look at that and you think, this is what God wants because this is what God wrote, because I was told that this is what God wrote. People don't use their critical thinking and saying, okay, this is what God said is good for us, but is it ethical? Like, do I agree? You never get to question God. You're just told this is what is good and this is what is bad. And when I started asking, okay, well, you said that this is good and bad, but why? There's no answers. It just is. You just fucking put it in your throat and you swallow it and you fucking deal with it because this is what God said. And so it's authoritarianism. Totalitarianism. That's not a loving God. To just make up fucking rules that are arbitrary and say, I don't like it because it hurts my feelings and I don't want it. Like, I would worship Trump if I wanted that.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that brings up a good point that I would like to actually all of us to talk about. So the other day, someone asked me, I told them about my podcast and stuff, and they were like, "So you're atheist? So just like, where do you get like your ethics? Like, why do you do good stuff or stuff like that?" Like they wanted to understand how I chose like how I live my life and what I'm doing and why I want to be a good person. And I was like, well, I don't have the threat of heaven or hell or whatever behind that. It's really just like my own internal, I want to do good things in the world, but I just wanted to get your like thoughts, both of your thoughts, I suppose, on like how you decide to live your life if you don't have the Bible or some other book telling you what to do.
Well, first of all, I think it's fucked up. Like, I think that that's not admirable that they are deciding what's good and bad based on what their big sky daddy told them. That they're not thinking critically about what benefits other people. That they don't think that they have any good in themselves that can tell them what's right or wrong. They're dismissing their humanity, the goodness of humanity, and they're outsourcing what is intrinsically good about humanity. And so as an atheist, as someone who's coming to terms with the fact that there is no extant meaning or morality, my hypothesis on it is that we do good because good is what it is biologically. We've decided what is good because it has benefited our species for so many years. I don't think that it is intrinsically good. I think it's just what has worked to cause us to continue to live well. And so at the very least, my biology tells me to help others. My biology makes me feel good when I help others because I'm helping my species, because I'm helping my clan, because I'm helping the world that I live in, that we're all a part of. And I want to live in a good world. I want other people to be well as well, because we all benefit each other and we're all in this together. And there is and then when you remove God from the equation, then there's no one out there anymore. You can't pray for the poor kids in Africa who are starving and think you're actually doing something anymore. Now you got to say, okay, there is no God. I have to be God in this world. I need to show the fuck up and do something that's actually practical and helpful to people, because we are all that we have, and that drives me as a person to do what I can in this world, to be the best that I can in this world for myself. And I'm not about self-sacrificing, like, either, to an extent. Like, it matters to help people, but also we're not talking a lot about the ethics of the self. Like, is it ethical to fucking, like, give up yourself for other people, like, entirely? I don't think it's ethical to you. There's ethics of how you treat other people, but then I don't think we talk about the ethics of the self. And that's a small tangent, but I feel driven by my own biology. I can't explain it to you. I'm not good nor bad. This is just what my species likes to do on the whole. We like to help. And I don't think that there is any big love vibe or universe of love or some kind of thing that streams through all of us. That sounds really woo-y to me. I just think it's basic biology. In any other world in the universe where there's something else out there that's evolved to higher level of intellect or whatever, they might have a different view of what is good and how to treat the world around them that we couldn't judge. I don't know, this is theoretical, but I think love is arbitrary. It's an arbitrary thing that we call good, and love is a useless definition as well. I think it comes down to behavior and what it means and why it drives us to do those things. So yeah, I don't feel like eating babies. There's not a whole lot of people that I want to murder, so I don't. So I'm just being myself And I think that's a pretty strong argument for there not being a God. I feel like I'm a lot better than most Christians because I don't need to be told by someone to do good.
I think that's basically true, and for the most part, exactly what I was thinking too. I think, generally speaking, I'm a good person. Like, don't get me wrong. I mean, I've lied, I've cheated, I've stolen. You know, I've done most of what would be considered petty crimes by people. So, you know, fucking Amish Wolverine or whatever the fuck his name is, who goes around and does those really bad videos. God Awful Movies has blasted apart his movies where he talks to, like, you know, like these stoner kids who are atheists and talks to them and stuff. And it's just like, you know, you talk to any person who's pretty much in their 20s and stoned, you're going to get them to say pretty much whatever you want.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it's like, I think generally speaking, there are few and far in between who aren't altruistic, I think, by a general speaking, you know, who like to help the clan, who like to help other people. And the people who are selfish, the people who are sociopathic and psychopathic, that kind of stuff, like the president. Oh, why did I even cough? The fucking president is a fucking sociopath and with narcissistic tendencies, probably.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so people like him, if it would have been more back in like early humanity, probably would have been ostracized, and he probably wouldn't have gotten anywhere near where he's gotten today. But because we live in a modern society that is where social Darwinism isn't necessarily a good thing. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, social Darwinism is considered bad. We can have debates about what social Darwinism is and how we can make it actually a better thing. But anyways, so this guy is allowed to succeed and thrive and that kind of stuff because nobody wants to go up against a fucking sociopath. Nobody wants to turn that ire onto himself.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, if you've ever met a real sociopath, you know it. And he's like, dude, whatever, man, just go. You know, it's like, you want to have as little to do with them as possible. You extricate yourself and you just let them go on because you don't want to fucking deal with it. So, could I kill somebody? Yes, I've been trained to do so. I could put 3 rounds into somebody's 10 ring and still sleep like a baby tonight. However, do I want to do something like that? Absolutely not. Could I? Yes. Would I like to? No. There's a difference between doing the job for when you're trained in the military to do something like that, and then these guys who have the shootouts in, you know, the south and west sides of the city because they want to join a gang, so they got to get some blood on their, you know, they got to blood in or whatever. That's entirely different. You know, it's a different ball of wax.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my roundabout viewpoint on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right.
I think it's. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, just thanks for answering.
Yeah, I think the word of the term altruism is something that intrigues me because my personal thought is that there is no such thing as altruism. Like everything that we do, even if it's self-sacrificing, even if we get nothing out of it, we do get something out of it because we feel good inside. And
Yeah.
so I personally don't think that there's no altruism out there, you know, and all these things that we think are bad now, stealing, you know, violence or whatever, those are new beliefs for our society. They're not
Yes.
always true. Our ancestors were much more violent. Narcissists did indeed get into power, and they did indeed dominate, and that was the way things worked. And it was and you look back and you're like, that's not good nor bad because they were apes and whatever. And that's my point. Everything is arbitrary. But currently we're in a society that this is where we've evolved to, that we value nonviolence as a whole. We value love as a whole, and I like it. I agree with those values. But still, I have to feel like they are indeed arbitrary. They're just what we are in right now.
Yeah.
I kind of thinking about what the people who are polyamorous and that kind of stuff. It's like only because of today's society and tax rules and laws from the old thing is the reason why marriage is the way that it's evolved through society to typical marriage as you see as two people, whether
The
it be
legal marriage.
Yeah, the legal marriage. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. But I think like when I was a teenager and that kind of stuff, it's like, I liked multiple girls at the same time. Do you know what I'm saying? And so,
I do.
Yeah. And so it's like, oh, she's super cute. Oh, she's cute too. All the time. I don't know. I probably had crushes on probably at least a third of the girls in my class in high school at any one point.
Yep.
I'm just at any point, oh, she's cute. Oh, well, she's looking really cute the last month or so. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, this is interesting because this reminds me, I only became poly maybe 2 years ago. And ever since then, every film that I watch falls apart. Because
Really?
because every story is about, do I pick him or do I pick him? And it's like, why not do both? Talk about it, agree upon it, get consent, but why not do both? This conundrum does not motivate me at all. I'm over this, and so there's so many movies I see now this could be solved with a discussion about polyamory and maybe reading the book More Than Two or Ethical Slut. I'm not motivated by your film.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you guys mind if I shift the program a little bit? I want to talk about some of the stuff that's gone on. I want to bring in the Detective's Corner again for a few minutes. Eric, do you mind?
No, I want to say two things first before we switch topics, though.
Okay.
Well, one, it's already, it's from the beginning, but I just want to say what you said at the beginning was really beautiful, and I loved it, and I love that you, Marie, not you, Matthew. I love that you found a voice in podcasting, and I think that's really awesome. So,
thank you.
Eric and I did too.
Right?
We found something.
Yeah, we found something.
We found a friendship for sure, and I appreciate it a lot. I appreciate you a lot, Matthew. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Okay.
Whatever.
So, yeah, whatever. Okay, so I want to. Okay, so I want to shift to the Detective's Corner. Marie, if you don't know, I was former military police, and so this thing about me being a detective was a joke on another show, and so that's how the Detective's Corner kind of migrated. But because I was military police, and I do know former and some active police officers today, both military and civilian, I think I've got a little bit of an informed opinion and views on policing and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So there was this thing in Chicago. Have you heard about Laquan McDonald and what the stuff that is going on with the murder of Laquan McDonald?
No, can you tell me about it?
I will briefly. About 3 years ago now, he was walking down a street. He had a knife in his hand, and he was walking perpendicularly about 15 feet away from a police officer. A police officer unloaded his service M9 9mm pistol into him. 16 shots.
Yeah.
He emptied the magazine. So most police officers do a full magazine, one in the chamber, close it, then put the magazine in, so you get 15 plus 1.
Yeah.
He unloaded the magazine. The mayor of Chicago is not running for re-election, Rahm Emanuel, because of the conviction, some people say, of Officer Jason Van Dyke, who was convicted of second-degree murder and 16 counts of assault by a police officer.
Yeah.
So the 3 police officers who wrote these corroborating statements saying that he turned towards him and raised his knife all three of those reports have been proven false. And so those police officers were under indictment for violating, writing false police reports. So anyways, Jason was convicted of second-degree murder and 16 counts of assault by a jury here in Chicago about 2 months ago. Earlier this week, the three officers for writing, two of the officers are now off the force. Whether or not they retired or not, I don't know, but they're off the force. The other one is still a member of the force. All three of them were either found not guilty or case turned out for lying in official statements. So that alone is enough to piss me off.
Yeah.
Then Jason Van Dyke got 6 years, 9 months in jail for killing a man. 6 years in jail for killing a man. They'll probably serve half of it. So probably serve about 4 years. And so the state of Illinois was keeping him out in Rock Island, Illinois, which Rock Island, Illinois is near the Iowa border. And so they're going to keep him away from the city of Chicago because it's an entirely different demographic. You get away from Chicago, and Illinois is still really rural, except for right around the cities. But Rock Island is pretty much a small town even today. I mean, there's some railroads and stuff going through there. But anyways, it's not a major city, or I mean, it's a major city, but it's not like one of the college towns or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so he's been serving his time for out there, and it's like, and if he still does his time out there, it's basically going to be a vacation for him. Do you know what I'm saying? They'll still keep him isolated, but he got 4 years for killing a man. So there is literally still no justice for black men in the United States when you get 4 years as a police officer for killing a man. I find that incredibly maddening. I mean, he should have gotten minimum 20 years. Because it would have been me to kill a guy, I would have gotten 20 years. Do you know what I'm saying? For just emptying a magazine into somebody. I don't get it. Marie, tell me your highly your smallly informed opinion from just what I've said. What do you think about this shit?
I got shit. It's depressing. I got shit. Like, I got nothing. This is pathetic. And I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do about any of this.
There was a former Marine who died in jail waiting to get medical attention like a couple of weeks ago. And so I posted it on our page, and it's like, they're just black men and people of color are just being killed for no reason by police who are afraid for their lives. It's like, why are you afraid for your life? You've got a gun, you got a weapon, you've got the element of surprise, you can go to deadly force. I mean, it's, why are you that thin-skinned, you fucking pussy? I mean, the fuck.
Well, to be fair, pussies aren't that thin-skinned, but I understand the sentiment. But
I wasn't talking about the female vagina. I was talking about the.
I'm just calling you out. I don't like it when men use that word to indicate that you're weak, because vaginas are great and they're not weak. That's all.
And they take a pounding.
If they want to, yeah. If they consent, yeah.
So.
But, yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, though.
Yeah. So I wanted to put that out. There's still no justice. And of course, a lot of black leaders here in Chicago boycotted the Martin Luther King breakfast put on by the city. They're like, we're like, fuck you, we're not going.
Yeah.
And so, Jason Van Dyke, his family were saying that, oh, well, our family's been ruined. Good, your husband shot a man.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it comes back to my point that there is no God. There's no God in this world. Everything is functioning exactly as it would if there was no God. It's us in charge. Us in charge of the government. Us electing people, praying for shit, praying for countries, praying for Syria. does shit all, you know? Like if we care about a cause, we need to get involved and stop fucking praying for it, because we are our own gods. We are the ones that can help each other. And like that's my only thought with this. Like we have to do something. We have to talk about this. There's no one that's gonna figure it out for us, you know?
Did you hear that Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who's the current press secretary for the president, has said that she might have problems finding a job after the presidency? So a lot of people responded back with thoughts and prayers.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
So yeah, our thoughts and prayers go to you, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Our thoughts and prayers.
Must be so
Fuck
hard.
you.
Yeah. Do a horrible job and then not be able to get hired again. I could see that's so unfair. Ugh.
Oh.
Well, thanks for calling Matthew out. I appreciate it.
That's someone's got to. Like,
Yeah, I do it enough. I gotta limit it.
You know, Matthew, I see you are extremely well intentioned, and I see that you are, you know, a highly evolved person who cares about things. And so, like, I don't call people out for nothing. I just, you know, maybe
don't shatter my fragile male ego, please. Don't shatter my fragile male ego.
Nah, you're over it. Nah, like fuck toxic masculinity. Like,
oh, with a cactus.
Yeah, fuck it with a cactus. Because rape is funny. I don't know, but still, like, yeah. No, like that's. I mean, we can kind of come back to my show for just like a moment, because
please.
You know, it's a very small way remind me of my co-host, because he's energetic and enthusiastic and has a lot of opinions, but also is a man and has lived as a man all of his life and has a bit of a dominating streak. But at the same time, I don't think he's hearing any of this because he walked away. But
I'm listening.
Okay, but he needs to hear it.
I'm back. I heard you. I was hearing it through my speakers, but thank you. I was appreciating it.
Yeah, just that you're extremely well intentioned, and you know it could do good for us who are not cis white men to just share our experiences of what certain things sound like, you know, when people say them. And so Cass, my co-host, you know, says things like that too. He often says, "Oh, people might call me a pussy." I'm like, and that's bad, because like, you know, I have one, right? Like, that feels bad for you to be called my genitals and literally like half of the world's genitals. And so he's like, oh. So, you know, like,
I can't tell you how many times I've said something and then somebody would be like, wait a minute, what about, and I'd be like, it's like, bing, light bulb. And it's just like, wow, I didn't realize, like the first time I said the R word or heard the R, you know, and I heard a response back like, no, saying the R word isn't good. And I have occasionally slipped back and said something back, and it's like, oh, God damn it, I need to stop that.
Yes. And that's, you know, this is oh God, I just love this discussion because it makes me think about the contrast between the words intention and impact. Like, for a long time, maybe people would say the word retarded in a derogatory form. Or no, that's not the example I was going with, but like maybe you would say something and it wouldn't be quite on, but you were like well-intentioned, and it hurts inside when someone calls you out on it. It's like, dude, really, did you have to focus on that? Like, can't you see the intention that I have? And you think that you're righteous because of that. And I empathize with that, because I've only gotten like mildly more woke over the last 2 years. But before that, I was kind of in this murky area too. But I think the conversation should be focused more on the word impact. So if you call someone the wrong name, or you use the wrong pronoun, or you use the wrong like racial terminology, and they call you out on it, whether they're calmly calling you out on it or whether they're angrily calling you out on it, the response is not, come on, man, like, you know what I meant. I was well-intentioned. Like, I didn't mean anything by it. Why are you getting so, like, hurt? Like, that's bullshit. like the impact that you had was harmful. And even if you didn't mean for it to be harmful, it was. So like and I'm speaking for myself. I'm not trying to preach to anyone. I'm only sharing my experience, and that like we need to let go of our egos and know that we're not always right. Like we don't know shit. I don't know enough about the trans experience to say the right thing at all times. And so I try to educate myself, and I try to, whenever I'm corrected, even if it's someone who's very angry, I remember, oh yeah, they're literally pelted all day long with bullshit about their identity. And so maybe they don't have enough energy to be like, hey girl, could you maybe not call me a she, identify as him, her, or excuse me, him, he. And then you're gonna be like, oh, come on, man, like, I don't know, just fucking like, I don't know, just let go, and just let people be called what they want to be called, and back off if you said something wrong and they're hurt. Just know that they're getting that shit all day long, and now you're putting it on them to be diplomatic all day long. Like,
yeah,
you know, we're gonna press you all day long and tell you that your identity is invalid, and then expect you to react rationally and kindly all the time.
Yeah,
that's bullshit. So this is just for me a conversation that I think is really interesting, because I know that there's a lot of people out there, cisgender people, like just, you know, people who are part of less marginalized groups who do feel do recognize intersectional feminism and do want to be woke and supportive and understand, you know, trans rights, or all the different discussions that we're having right now. And they're well intentioned, but then they say shit and then get butt hurt when they get called out on it. And they're like, I'm just trying to help. I'm on your side. Are you though? Because you're denying my story and you're not listening to me right now.
Yeah.
So like there's this very, very tall soapbox that I have that I really, really, really want to talk about. That, like, respecting people's stories, acknowledging that they might be angry sometimes and they don't owe you kindness.
No.
You know, they're fucking drives me nuts.
Yeah, I appreciate everything you just said, because a lot of the time I'm a very out trans person, so I try to take the diplomatic side and the educational side as much as possible, but it is a lot to handle when it's a constant thing. Like sometimes I'll have like, I don't even know, like 5-10 people a day that I have to educate, and I'm like, why is this on me? But I mean, I'm glad that I get to do it, because I get to inform them that, hey, being trans isn't that weird. You're working with me right now. Like, we're right here. I'm a person. It's normal.
Yeah.
But it is a lot to handle. And I think all the words you just said explain how I feel a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry that that's the experience. And I think it's really interesting to, when you run across people who are in positions such as yourself, where you value that ability to be able to educate people and you take advantage of that, but that probably does take a toll on you at the end of the day. But I think you find some kind of like life from it, like a, you know, meaning in being able to educate people and progress maybe trans visibility and rights by educating people. And at the same time, not everyone's in that position. Not everyone wants to educate. Not everyone, like,
oh yeah,
you know, and so like what ticks me off, and it ticks me off because maybe I used to do it, is like seeing someone, acknowledging someone in a marginalized group, like maybe I would see a person of color, and then like focusing in on them and being like, I want to talk to them about race, and like going up to them and being like, hey, like, what's it like being a Black person? Or like, what do you think about Black Lives Matter? Like, or whatever. And like, just, I don't know, like tokenizing them or something, and just like non-consensually starting up conversations about something that is a traumatic. I'm using words for them. I'm speaking for them, and I don't mean to do that, but I hope you understand what I mean. But you're bringing up trauma for them.
mm-hmm.
Like, they live this their entire life, and I'm talking about me now. I can only speak for me. I will maybe go up to them and be like, hey, so like, you know, as someone who's Black, like, what do you think about this? And it's like, holy shit. Now that years have gone by, and I'm like, like, That is not what you do. Like, there are books. There are fucking books where people have written down their experiences as Black people. Or there are YouTube videos. There are news articles written by people of color, trans people, people with disabilities or whatever, who are in a place where they're sharing their experience. And it's out there for you to go fucking look at. Like, you don't need to go and like fucking harass every person in a marginalized group that you meet on the street and like make it so clear that they are not normal to you, and to make them have to account for their identity to you because you are white and you don't know what this feels like and you need someone to hold your hand, and like it drives me crazy. And so like obviously there are relationships in our lives where maybe we feel more comfortable than others, and you know that you can talk about that stuff, but
Yes.
you'll know that. And but at this point for me, I try to be highly aware of the experiences of people in ongoing extremely marginalized groups. And if I have a conversation with them, I try to use extremely consensual language with them. Like, is it okay? Like, is it okay if I ask you a question about your experience or something like that? Or and you phrase, I try to phrase my questions with a lot of curiosity and seeking clarity instead of using very presumptuous questions like, so have you gotten your surgery yet? Like that,
Yeah.
you know, it's bullshit. Like you're showing you're presuming things instead of like, so, you know, you could ask other questions if you got consent from them to talk about it. But yeah, that's the thing that drives me crazy. Everyone just thinks that anyone that they see who's a person of color or who's trans or whomever, you can just make them your person that's going to educate you about their experience. It's, you know, and maybe some want to, you know, like you, Eric, but
yeah.
not everyone done that. Like maybe Eric, can you tell me, like, out of all the people that you have to educate in a day, how many of them like just like get in your face about it and like ask questions versus like, is it okay if like, what's your experience with that?
Well, I think most of them just ask the questions. I get a few people that are really nice and like thoughtful and are like, "Hey, can I ask you some questions?" And that's really nice, but most of the time they don't even know what they're saying is rude or like hurtful, like saying, "Hey, have you had the surgery?" And I'm like, "I mean, you probably really shouldn't do that." The one I get a lot that is very uncomfortable is like, "Hey, what was your birth name?" And I'm like, why? I get that all the time, and I'm just like, that's really not a nice question to ask a trans person.
Yeah,
But
that's your. Is it okay if I ask you a quick question?
yeah.
So I was just gonna say,
Oh,
so like I've had different experiences with trans people, and like I met one person who didn't like calling her previous name her dead name. She was like, well, that's just who I was back then, and every trans person I've ever met hates me because I don't hate my dead name and my previous life, you know?
yeah.
Like, so is that your experience too, or like?
I'm coming around to it because I feel like that is a very common experience that everybody hates their dead name. I don't use that word. I just call it my birth name.
Okay.
I mean, that's everybody's own choice, you know, but I just call it my birth name because that's what I was given at birth. But, and I do usually tell people what it was because, like, that's an educational moment and it's a cool story on how I got my new name. But anyway, they're just like, I don't know, it's weird, and I just lost my train of thought. Oh my God, my experience. Yeah, my experience is that I'm coming around to not hating it because I am really embracing like sharing old pictures and sharing old experiences. And I'm like, why should I hate who I was for like 20 years? You know, like I hate that I had to figure out over so many years that this is who I actually am. And it took so long for me to be comfortable in my own body and in myself. That sucks. But for 20 years, I had this experience as a woman. I was like raised as a girl. Like I saw how I was treated, and now I see how I'm getting treated when I'm viewed as a guy. And that's a very educational experience that I can share for people.
Yeah.
So I don't hate who I was. I am still really the same person inside, to be honest. I'm just much more comfortable now.
Yeah.
my hope for you, Eric, is that you grow as a man, and I mean that as the best way possible, without all the toxic masculinity that I was forced to grow up with as a child. You know, like boys don't play with dolls, or you know what I'm saying? I mean, you know, all this shit, you know,
Yeah.
like that we've had. And I hope that you don't get that toxic masculinity shoved down your throat and takes so long to break.
Yeah.
And, you know, I hope that I can at least see most of it in myself and try to avoid it as much as possible, because there is so much of it out there. And those of us who were born male and who identify as cis, you know, we get this shit shoved down our throat for fucking years. And it's just like, you know, it's like how we treat, as a white cis guy, you know, growing up where I did, like how we treat women, how we treat people of color, how we treat people who don't have the same religion or no religion as us.
Yeah.
You know, it's like trying to break out through all of that and just the cultural baggage that I've had to deal with. And I hope that you never get that. And I hope that you can grow as a person without all that bullshit.
Weirdly enough, sorry.
No, I'm just saying, go ahead, please.
Oh, yeah. When I was growing up, like, I mean, I mentioned this on the show. It was not the best environment. It was pretty abusive and stuff. So I was actually taught not to cry as a girl. I was told that showing your feelings and crying was really bad. I was made fun of constantly in my environment for crying and showing feelings. So that I feel like would have been the same if I was raised as a guy. Either way, I sometimes I think about like what the differences would have been with my family, and I don't know what they would have been, but maybe I would have been respected more. I don't know, but it's like they made fun of my feelings, and then because I was a girl, like it just maybe it was worse. I'm not sure. It's weird.
Wow, that's like, because as I saw how my female cousins were being raised, you know, it was like it was okay to show your feelings and that kind of stuff. But no, I mean, if I got a sniffle, I started crying. I got backhanded. If I was, I wish I was joking, but I literally got backhanded more than once as a child for, you know, 7, 8 years old for crying. What's the matter with you? Pow, boys don't cry.
Yeah, I wasn't told boys don't cry, obviously. I was just told you shouldn't cry. Like, I was taught you need to ignore your feelings. Then they would hit me. Then they would be like, oh, you're crying. Then they'd laugh at me, like, a lot. So that was, like, the cycle I went through, which is not really relevant to my gender. But anyway, but going forward to today and, like, being seen as – I'm typically seen as a gay male, like if people just see me and don't know me, they're like, oh, you're just probably gay.
That's what you are.
Well, yeah, I mean, I am gay, but but yeah, so I guess I get seen correctly in that light. But
cool story, bro.
That's not what I was getting to a point. Shit. Let me get there. I'm a little slow sometimes. Anyway, shit. Like when I'm playing video games or whatever with like the dudes or whatever, like my bros, like they start like saying all like they'll say like pussy or like whatever, like you're being a pussy or whatever it is, and I'm like, shit, like I don't like this. This is weird. Like, and guys just in general will talk around like weirdly around me now, like or like they'll talk like a dude around me now. And I'm like, this is not a cool side to go to. Like, and now I have to stick up for women. And
that's part of the lexicon, unfortunately.
It's so much I have to like make up for and also learn because like it's all different to me. So
yeah. Unfortunately, going, don't be such a pussy is part of the lexicon. How horrible it is part of the lexicon. And so it's like, I mean, even I just said it in this episode. And it's a horrible thing to say to somebody. It really is.
Calling women a bitch is like just a very constant thing that happens.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like, you can't refer to them as bitches. Like you can't. What are you doing?
But not only that, I mean, you know, like there's kind of a double standard in this too. Is like, because I see it a lot where a man will call another man a bitch too, and it's kind of taken in the double entendre sense. And it's just like, whoa, I'm not being sexist. I call men bitches too. Well, it's because you mean it in the first pejorative way. Don't be pedantic, you asshole.
I think toxic masculinity is such an interesting topic, and I could talk about it all
for hours.
Day.
Yeah.
I love it because I like, and I've said this on multiple platforms, that I feel bad for men because and you know, and it's interesting because I already felt this way long before the Gillette commercial came out, but I feel bad for men because there are now a lot of discussions happening about what does toxic masculinity do to men? How does it affect men? Everyone's just like, or not even toxic masculinity, misogyny in general, patriarchy, just that whole thing. Because everyone's just talking about like, and this is an important conversation, I'm not glossing that over, but how it affects women.
Yes.
And it also affects men in a negative way. And if you wanted to put them on scales, yeah, you would say women have it worse or whatever, but that's not the conversation I want to have. I just want to have a conversation about, yes, it does affect men. Let's talk about that. So I feel bad for men because as someone who is raised as a woman, typically, this is not Eric's experience, but as someone who's raised as a woman, you are taught that it is okay to cry, that you are expected to have feelings. In fact, it is timed. You are expected that you will have feelings at least once a month, and that you will be crazy and like, so everyone expects this of you, and it's normal, and you are comforted around that, you are embraced around that. Oh, sweetie, like, oh, and it's a more or less safe thing to do. Average experience, whatever. Also, you are subject to men, you are treated like an object, there's a lot of bullshit happening there, like you don't have the same opportunities, you're spoken over, all those experiences as well. However, my opinion is that since you are allowed to have feelings, you end up socializing more, you end up disclosing more, you end up getting support, you end up talking about your feelings, you end up being a gender that is more likely to get therapy. You end up being a gender that's more likely to have more friends that you talk to about serious emotional things. And therefore you end up getting supported. You end up evolving as a person and growing and becoming stronger and self-actualizing and becoming a more well-rounded individual because you were allowed to have feelings. And ultimately, then you're able to grow out of internalized misogyny and fuck patriarchy. And I think that that's fucking fantastic. And so, yay, I'm a woman who was empowered to be emotional so that she could dig herself out of patriarchy and internalized misogyny. And I'm happy about that. That's great. I did that. However, men don't get that. They are oppressed for fucking life. Like, they have to do I'm sure like a million people are going to disagree with me, and I hope that they do. I would love to do
a million.
I'm just curious that there's maybe a different nuance to it. I'm not saying that it's not entirely true. I'm just saying maybe.
I'm talking about you're not going to reach 1 million people on our podcast.
It might go viral. We're going to go viral with this episode.
Yeah, everyone listen to the cisgender white women talk about validity. Yeah, they're going to love that. But like, I feel bad for you guys because you are under a lot of pressure from your masculine social groups to ball up, to not talk about, oh, you're a kitty, to not talk about feelings. And so you're actively oppressed in your culture emotionally. And so you die earlier. If your partner dies, you are more likely to be depressed and lonely because you have less skills to reach out and seek support, and you have less practice acknowledging your feelings and being with them and processing them in a productive way versus a violent way.
Yes.
And so you're fucked. Like, and again, I'm not trying to weigh one experience over the other compared, women's effect of this and then men's effect of this, but I am saying that there's a discussion to be had where, it even benefits women to feel bad for men in this case because we want men to advocate for us. We want men to be allies to us. And that might be hard to do if they're feeling like they don't have the skills to emotionally relate to these things and to process these things and to understand these things because they were raised in a different way than us. And so, and I'm not even speaking out of my ass right now, like my husband, you know, struggles with this. Like, and in the couple of years that I've been trying to understand experiences that are not my own, like he's been along for the ride and has discovered in himself his own toxic masculinity. Like he is emotionally shut down many times, and he feels like he can't express things. And especially he's noticed it in this last week and a half where our cat, who we consider a fur baby, so she's a very important part of our family, got gravely ill at the beginning of December, and then we had to give her euthanasia last.
Oh no!
Yeah, and it's been a horrifying trip for us, and we don't have to get into all of it, but my point being just that, like, he's noticed a lot of pressure inside of him to not talk about the grief with the public. Like, he is vulnerable with me, and I think I'm the only person that he's vulnerable with, but what if I die? Like, who's he going to reach out to? Who's he going to be vulnerable with? Who's he going to talk to? And so he's been noticing that, like, you know, I noticed a lot of resistance in me, and I noticed, like, there was one evening, and I don't remember if it was when our cat was already dead or if it was before, and we were stressed out, and he's like, I just want to hit something. And I don't like that I just want to hit something. I just want to feel these feelings, and I want to cry, but I just feel like I need to hit something. And I'm like, so he's like struggling with this, his own toxic masculinity, and that's what I think the Gillette commercial, and I'm not super excited that it's Gillette. I don't fucking care about companies, but it's still a conversation. That's what they're trying to get at. Like, men aren't allowed to feel their feelings and feel the wholeness of what it is to be human. Because you guys are still human. You still have tears. You still have hurt. And what a shitty life that is. Like, yay, you get all the power. Yay, people think that you're smart by default because you're in the room. Okay, whatever, that's great. But I feel bad. Like, yeah. I feel like a whole person. I feel really good about myself, and I've gotten here through a lot of therapy and a lot of talking and a lot of sense of permission to be able to be broken and emotional. And so I don't know, I find that conversation a really interesting one to have, though I would recognize if a lot of women didn't want to talk about it because they feel like it overshadows their own experience. And that's okay, I can see that. But personally, I find it a really interesting conversation, and I hope for men that they find a way to push back and to be better allies and to grow emotionally and to you know, be more human if they want, you know, feel more feelings, you know, fuck what other men think of them, fuck what their dad told them, you know, just, it's okay. And I don't know how they're going to do that. You guys need to figure it out, but, you know.
I've been tending to find that for those of us who came, I'm generally speaking here, and only in a few cases that I can see, and some people who've talked about it, some people in the podcast and the atheist podcast community, for those of us who were, and I'm speaking about men, who were highly religious, then came out of our religion later in life, who had to deal with all of those emotions that they were suppressing for a longer time, and who are more humanist than just atheist, because I think that that's a big factor too. And that having to deal with all these emotions, like, you know, like what happens like after you die? Are you going to be sad, or, you know, like, or you know, with your friends who pass away, or whatever. But like, not only that, but sickness and how you felt about your religion and how you feel about coming out of it. And I think having to deal with all those emotions plays a factor. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that I don't need help, because everybody needs help at some point or another. And, you know, I've needed help in the past, and I've gotten help in the past. But I think that I think that I'm a little more emotionally aware than a lot of other people. At least I hope to think that I am. And that I saw the commercial, and the whole point that they had is like they wanted to go Gillette, the best a man can get. And so they wanted to show stopping certain things or doing certain things to improve us as humanity and as Americans and all that kind of stuff. And the backlash from the conservatives. Now, I know people who were pissed about that commercial. I like friends of mine who I've known for the better part of 20 years who were pissed off about that commercial. And it was like, oh, well, I don't see about, like, why are you so offended? It's like, I'm not offended by what they did. I'm offended that you got offended by showing to stop horrible behaviors, and then you got mad about that. That's what makes me mad. I'm not mad that the commercial itself is out. I could care less. But and he's sort of like, he's like, you mad, bro? And I'm just like, oh, I'm furious. I'm triggered or something like that. Because I've known this guy for the better part of 30 years. We both laughed about it. Do you know what I'm saying? Because we do know about that, but there's that thing of like, he's got his view, I've got mine. We're not really going to change each other's viewpoints on this. It's just going to like, okay. So at the end, it's like, okay, we both chuckled over it and broke off the conversation. And
shit,
he's not exceptionally religious, but he is a conservative. But he does have, a bit of the old religion jammed in his ass from time to time. And so, so for only ending up after, 4 or 5 ads on each side, about 4 or 5 things on each side, it'd be like, okay, so now we're laughing about it. That was a good conversation. It really was. So, but can we talk about something else? Can we break off about male masculinity and kind of go on a tangent, which is actually kind of related? The MAGA hat wearing high school kids from the Catholic high school who were, I've seen some videos, some edited and some not. Some of these kids were approaching these group of Native Americans. The guy with the drum got in the middle to stop them from coming in. And that look and that fucking smirk on that kid's face made me want to backhand that fucking kid. He really did. Because that look of every fucking abuser that I've ever fucking seen, that fucking smile, wearing that fucking hat, them screaming, build that wall. To Native Americans, saying build the wall to Native Americans. But anyways, that fucking smirk on that fucking kid is the face of almost every abuser that I have ever seen with my own eyes. That fucking smirk. And so there has been times in the past where somebody was, abusing me, like when I was in school and we came to blows. It's happened. So yeah, that fucking smirk has made me punch somebody in the mouth before.
Yeah.
So it is what it was.
It's bullshit. Yeah, and I think this, for me, it ties into the need to stand up. And because I don't know the context of the actual situation where it happened, like if there were other people around, like were all of those boys chanting that? Were some of them there but like didn't want to say anything against it because they were just there witnessing it and like it wasn't the entire mob? Like to me it screams someone in there probably wasn't super on board with what was happening but wasn't part of this Native American group.
Yeah.
And for me, this becomes a discussion about what allyship means. I think there's one conversation that can happen anyway, because there were a lot of people there. And obviously the Native Americans were there, and I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the people who were there and didn't like what was happening. Did anyone do anything? Did anyone say anything? Or did they just stand there and try not to get in anyone's face? And this is where I noticed the difference between people who say they're allies because it's the PC bro, like cool thing to be, and then the ones who actually do something when rubber hits the road. Like, put yourself out there, endanger yourself. And this, I think, especially in this situation, ties into toxic masculinity, because I bet there were some boys there that were not on board with exactly, I don't know. I don't know the situation entirely. So if I'm wrong, I admit that, but I have to imagine that there were some people there who weren't on board with it, but they didn't want to like face, repercussions from a group of men, because men are afraid of men, because toxic masculinity. And so this is a discussion for me about what it means to be an ally, because the Native Americans were doing what they could to just fucking keep their shit together, I assume, and to stay safe. They were trying to stay safe and not aggravate the group around them. And again, this talks about what these people's lives are like day in and day out. So they're well rehearsed and trying to stay safe. And so what are you going to do if you're an ally and you see this shit go down? And I have a story about this that fucking pisses me off every time I think about it, because I was in a social situation just last year where I was surrounded by, I was in a group of men, and they're in a party that was attended by atheist people. And that was the point of it, to celebrate atheism, to celebrate secularism and humanism and whatever. And I just happened to be in a group of men who were hanging out in this area. And one of the men, who's more of like an alpha male and loves attention, started to tell stories about his experience with women in certain situations. And I was the only woman there, woman identifying or whatever. And I'm just sitting there listening to this guy talk about these bodies that just happened to be humans that are women in such a degrading, disgusting way, as if they were things to conquer, as they were objects to buy, as if they were, things that he had any say into what happened to their bodies.
I've heard stories like that so many times.
Everyone's got a story. This is not an old story. This happened.
They're so sick.
Yep, this happened to me, and I'm looking around because I'm like, what the fuck is he saying? What the fuck is he saying? And I'm looking around at my feminist men in this room, and I'm so angry I could cry right now. And they said fucking nothing. Fucking nothing. I could see on their faces, they were just tolerating it, like, okay, could you stop talking about me objectifying women now? Please don't hurt us, alpha male. And no one said anything. One person left, like, respectfully just left. And I spoke with him afterwards, and he's like, yeah, I just don't want to be there anymore. I'm like, dude, you knew what was happening. Could you have said something? Point being, no one said shit except for me. I was like, okay, well, I've got no allies here. This man is talking about my entire gender, and I've got no allies here. So what the fuck am I going to do? I guess I'm going to fucking say something. So I just did what I could, as angry as I was in this daunting situation that I was, where I had no allies. And I was like, you're full of shit. And he's like, what, you don't believe me? I'm like, no, I absolutely do believe you. That's why you're full of shit. You can't talk about these women as if you own their bodies and can decide what happens with them. And that's basically all I said. And then I don't really remember what happened after that. I think he just brushed me off and went on to some other story or whatever. None of the men chimed in and was like, oh, yeah, good call, Marie. Thanks for fuck. And I had to do it. And I'm white. I am a woman. And so some advantages I have. Some privileges I have. Let's consider other, groups. A trans person, a person of color, in a group of white people, where none of the white people are calling out maybe one white person who says something racist, and they just maybe walk away, or they just kind of wait until that person's done saying racist things and try to passive aggressively move the conversation on. Fuck that. If you're going to be an ally, fucking say something. It is not on the respective person of color or whomever, but some will do it. I fucking had to do it, and I resent the fuck out of that. But I will do it. But you need to stand up. In that locker room, when Trump is talking like he's talking, you need to fucking say something. And get the fuck over your toxic masculinity and stand up for equality and stop being afraid of these asshole fuck faces. And then maybe things will start to change. So this is really on men. Like, men, you need to stand up. Everyone, we need to stand up for each other and call this shit out. That's the thing that keeps coming back for me. Like, be a real ally. Stop fucking sharing shit on your Facebook wall to make everyone think that you're so woke. What did you do in this party when everyone was drunk and saying horrible shit about women? What did you do? Nothing. You did nothing. You're not woke.
And it's funny because according to the rules of toxic masculinity, the rules that if I was a man, if I as a man were to say something to another man, be like, look, stop, you are wrong, that pretty much everybody else is going to back away, and it's going to be just that guy and myself. And most likely, he will probably back down, or it might get physical. That's pretty much how it will go.
Yeah.
And so I'm just saying, I mean, because I've seen it go where somebody has stood up to somebody and then the other person backs down, or it turns into a fight. Yeah. Like literally turns into a physical confrontation. You've got to be ready for it. And a lot of men aren't ready for physical confrontation. They don't want to do it. I'm just saying. I mean,
yeah, possibly. I mean, you got to consider your safety, I suppose. Yeah. I wasn't concerned for my safety. I was just concerned for my entire gender and our ability to be seen as equals.
Absolutely, and I entirely support and understand that. And I have stood up in the past, and hopefully I will, if the opportunity presents itself where I can be a better ally, I will stand up. Yeah. But I have pledged to do so on multiple occasions on this show, and will do so again, that if I identify something as where they need an ally, I will stand up and be that ally. I will, up to and including the point of physical violence. I don't have a problem defending somebody physically. I will do it.
I have a story for that, actually.
Sure.
So when I visited Matthew in Chicago, 2 times I visited him. And both times, whenever I try to go to the bathroom in public, he's like, yo, let me go with you. Like, I want to make sure you're safe. And I'm like, bro, I got this, but thank you. But the first time he went with me, and I was like, okay, thank you so much. He's super down.
Well, I think that's another really interesting conversation about like how important it is what we just talked about being an ally. But at the same time, how do you balance that out? Like with you, Eric, like, do I throw myself on you and say, let me help you? I'm gonna protect you. Look, I have a safety pin on my shirt. I'm your superhero. Like, tell me what you need me to do. Like, and how do you support, but then not like overwhelm and like
right.
Pilot, this helicopter parent of all marginalized people. And how do you make sure not to stand up too much? Like, if that person is there, if that person in a marginalized position is there and is standing up and saying something, don't talk over them, first of all, because they are choosing to speak, so like there's this little bit of a balancing act where, yes, if you're going to show up and be an ally, do that. But also, if that person is already saying something, this marginalized person is already saying something, you have to be very cognizant of not talking over them, because their voice is the one that matters the most. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. And what I would do is like, I end up going to the bathroom a lot. I end up having to go pee a lot. I just do. I just do. So like when we were out, I look at Eric, I'm like, I'm going. Do you want to come? And of course, Eric would be like, yes or no. And I'd go anyways, because I really did have to go. And so I was like, I'm going to the bathroom. And so, I tell Eric and my wife, Sachi, I'm like, I got to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. And so if Eric wanted to come with, he could have. So, but it was only once or twice because, well, my bladder's the size of a thimble. So at least it seems like that sometimes. So
Eric, is that something that you like experience, like trepidation about going into restrooms alone?
Well, when I first started transitioning, I definitely, for the first year, I would say, at least for the first 6 months, I definitely only used the women's restroom. And then, like, for the next year after that, it was like a toss up. It was like, do I feel like I pass enough to go in this bathroom? Does this bathroom feel safe enough? Is this bathroom in the middle of like rural North Carolina? Because if it is, I'm going to go to the women's restroom. And then there was times I was like, I don't really fit in either now, so I don't even know. So I'd just like not go. But at this point, I'm very masculine looking. I have a beard happening. Like, I usually am read as a guy, so I always go to the men's restroom now. But that is such a fascinating thing to think about, because I know we keep going off on tangents. I'll make this one really short, and then we can like get to our end of the show. But so my job is working with homeless and struggling youth, and I really, really love it. And a lot of them are LGBT, a lot of them are trans, and I think that's super awesome that I get to help them. And so one client I have identifies with he, him pronouns, and they are staying in a shelter, and the shelter has gone on to like this weird thing where one of the workers was like, well, if you use he, him, you have to use the men's restroom and the men's stuff. And I'm trying to advocate for this person because, like, yes, I guess I get what the shelter's saying. Like, they're agreeing with your pronouns or not making you use your biological ones. So that's a really weird conundrum that we're in, because you don't see that a lot. But this person does not feel safe in the men's room. They are very early in their transition, and maybe they don't even want to physically transition, and that's fine. So if they feel safe in the women's restroom, then they should be allowed to use that. So it's such a weird thing to think about and a place to be in. But like, where should people go to the bathroom? Which bathroom should they use? They should use the one they feel safe in. That's my opinion. So, yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to say this the right way, but I'm imagining this person and they use he, him pronouns, and that this organization is saying, well, since you're using he, him, you go into the he, him bathroom. But then they're being pedantic about language. Like, if you use language, then that infers that. However, just because they use that language doesn't mean that they feel physically like safe, like I feel comfortable appearing as I am in this restroom. Because, and again, this is where I really feel like I'm not going to use the right words, Eric. So if you'll correct me, but like some trans individuals or queer or non-binary people look more like one gender than the other, and what they identify as might not align with that. Like, you know, like they might not. What's the new phrase for passing? Or is that an appropriate?
I think I mean it's a questionable term that may be good or bad, but we still use passing as like I pass, or like I pass as a guy.
Okay, so like for lack of a better word, I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Like, maybe you don't feel like you pass, or that people will accept how you are identifying or how you're expressing your gender. And so then you just go to the one that you feel like the rest of the world will accept you in.
Yeah.
Despite what pronouns you use. So that pisses me off, that's where they're drawing the line. It's completely ignorant to what the experience is.
Yeah. So basically what the person, their comeback was, well, I changed my pronouns to they, them. And I talked to that person. I was like, you're in a very vulnerable state, and I accept you with whatever pronouns you want. I'll use whatever you want. I support you. But if you're changing your pronouns just so you can go to the bathroom you feel most comfortable in, that is not okay. And I'm going to advocate for you as much as I can. And they were like, yeah, I didn't want to change my pronouns, but I really want to go to the bathroom I feel safe in. Yeah. So I'm like, this is the shittiest situation. So, but yeah. Anyway.
Okay, can we move on?
Yeah, we can move on to something happier. All right, whatever.
We can move on to something happier. Okay. Marie, I got to ask you a question. You may or may not know, but we like to play role-playing games, and by we mean role-playing games, Dungeons & Dragons. I am a huge Dungeons & Dragons fan. I've been playing since the early 1980s, and I've played all the editions. So Yeah. Did you play Dungeons and Dragons? And if so, what was your favorite class?
Okay, so I never played Dungeons and Dragons as a kid because it was demonic.
Of course. And I still did too. Yeah. I started playing in like 83 or 84. And I remember like one of the elders of the church's wives said, I'd been playing for like 2 years, and they're like, oh, you cast spells and stuff. And I'm like, rolling a die and going magic missile or whatever, or fireball is not casting a spell. And I have never dressed up in anything weird and like carried knives and sacrificed shit and all that. Not happening. So anyways, you were saying.
Oh, yeah, that I never played it as a kid. Even if I had the opportunity, I probably wouldn't have because I don't think the game's up my alley. But I did, like, as I recover from religion, there's a lot of things that I enjoy trying just because someone told me it wasn't okay to do. Like, I don't know, like having a husband and a boyfriend at the same time. I was told that was not great. So I tried that out, and it's actually pretty great. So I might be adding a new one too. So fuck everyone. It's actually really awesome. But thanks for the thumbs up. But I did, after I met my boyfriend 2 years ago, he goes by the nickname Snacks, and I know that I can use that pseudonym, so I'm aware of that. But he's into all those nerdy like board game things, and he does like a D&D night every week. Yeah, so me and like a couple of my former Christian friends were like, hey, like this is a great opportunity to like play this demonic game. And so he was our master of ceremonies. I don't remember.
Dungeon master.
Dungeon master.
The dungeon master.
He was our MC. And and so we played like a game once, and I didn't find it very compelling. I was an elf, I think, maybe. And
elf fighter, something probably.
I don't know, like I like to talk to trees and stuff. That was my character.
Druid.
Druid. So I was a druid because
archetypal.
Yeah, and I don't remember what my name was, but they called me Midge. Oh no, my name was Banana Phone because
Your name was what?
Banana Phone.
Banana Phone? Wow.
Very typical elf name, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't take it terribly seriously.
There's the general gist behind it is like the role playing is what's important, and you roll dice to do an action that you may or may not fail on. Yeah. That's basically the whole point of the game. And if you've got a good dungeon master who can weave a good story, who's got a good story and can draw you in, and sometimes there's no choice but to do the fashion players come here neon sign, players do this. Sometimes that happens, like PC here, player character here, come talk to this person. You've got no choice. But if you've got a dungeon master who can weave a good story, you've got a good group. And I've had several good ones over the years who've been good. And then we've had games where the dungeon master rotated, and those were always fun because it brought a new spin.
Yeah.
Like the game that I'm in on Saturday nights, the dungeon master rotates through sections of the modules. So like I ran like the midsection when they were underground fighting an evil Trent that was transformed by a meteorite. And so like all of these guys, like nobody had anything for Forrest. You would have been great. Your character would have been loving life and would have been waxing ass. But all the rest of the characters in the party, including mine, were sucking hind tit. It was great. So
sucking hind tit.
Yes.
I don't know what to do with that.
It means sucking ass.
Oh, okay. All right.
So sucking hind tit. It's like you're sucking that butt cheek, baby. It's not a tit. You think you might get something out of it, but it might not be what you want.
Okay.
Yikes.
All right.
Poor baby. So, but anyway, so I just wanted to ask, as we ask all of our people, you're one of a very few who have it, but that's honestly not surprising. I've found our theory is like people who come out of our hypothesis, not a theory yet. Our hypothesis is that most people who are atheist podcasters, because of the imagination skills, at some point play Dungeons and Dragons in their life. So
Even
that's our
imaginations. Are we renowned for that?
the podcasters maybe.
Side point, I think, at least where I grew up in the South, sucking hind tit meant that, like, with like a runt or like a litter of puppies, like the runt would get like the last one.
The last
so it'd
nipple.
be like the last nipple, and that's what, and then maybe they wouldn't even get one. So that's what sucking hind tit meant. Anyway.
Well, I don't know. I was born and raised in suburb/city, so I don't know about any of these countrified things. So,
all
right, y'all.
Oh God. Okay. So we also like to do this thing that's called No Trumps, where there are 2 quotes on this, and so I will read them in my best Trump voice, which is horrifying. It's so bad.
It doesn't even sound like Trump.
No, but I will read 2 quotes, and then you will need to guess which one is Trump.
Okay.
They're horrifying. We've had a lot of Richard Nixon lately.
Oh, so are they other presidents or just random other people?
Random other people who say bad shit.
Like random, like famous or whatever.
Okay.
Known people.
So like not shit you said.
No.
We didn't make the game.
Okay,
no,
yeah.
This was something I bought for like $15 at like the center kiosk in the mall. So yeah. So it's not high production value. So okay, number 1. I got to a party and socialized at the Olympic level. That was number 1.
Hold on, I was so busy laughing at your accent. Can you say it again?
Sure. I got to a party and socialized at an Olympic level.
Okay, all right.
Number 2. I made a lot of money and I made it too easily to the point of boredom.
Well, see, the second sentence was extremely coherent. So I'm going to go and say that the first one was Trump.
Okay, Eric?
Can you say the first one again? I'm sorry.
Number 1. Okay. I got to a party and socialized at an Olympic level.
Yeah, that one sounds like Trump. I'll go with that one.
Bodie Miller.
I almost went with the second one, but...
Our first wrong answer.
Oh, no!
It was the peer pressure. I was like, well, she's probably right.
Our first wrong answer.
All right.
I'm up for setting records. I'm fine with that.
Okay. Excuse me. Number 1. She's got double D's. You can't cover those suckers up. Am I enunciating okay?
Yeah.
Okay. That was number 1. Number 2. She's really cute. I have to tell you. She's really bouncy, really cute. She's about 5'1". Do you like girls who are about 5'1"? They come up to you know where.
He could have said either of those.
I know.
Oh, it's a coin toss.
I'm going with number 2.
Yeah, good idea going first, Eric. We don't want the social pressure. Yeah. And I don't feel socially pressured, but I agree with Eric. Maybe number 2.
You say number 2 is Trump.
Sure.
Eric, is that your number 2 is Trump?
Yeah, sure.
Number 2 is Trump.
Okay, way to try to trick us here.
Yeah.
Number 2 is Trump. So right now you guys are 1-1.
How many are there?
As many as you want. We'll do
as
this
many
is the
as you
last
want.
one.
Okay, all good.
Let's do one more.
Okay. Number 1. We can't continue to allow China to rape our country.
Well.
Number 2. No system of government can or should be imposed upon one nation by any other.
Number 1.
You sure number 1 is Trump?
Yes.
Obviously not, but 1.
Number 1 is Trump.
Dick.
Number 2 sounded too smart.
It was Barack Obama.
Can I get a Brahma? Can I get a Barack Obama accent?
No.
Oh.
Please?
No system of government can or should be imposed upon one nation by any other.
He's just talking
Matthew. I'm
Yes.
gonna need a better Obama accent.
Sorry.
Or William Shatner. I don't know.
Like Oz and like spaces. And
Yeah,
You
he gives a lot of
mean,
Oz.
Scotty, we need to have the engines, but we're all going to die. Scotty, get the warp engines on right now.
You missed your calling, Matthew, as an impression artist.
I only do one good impression, and I've said it before a couple of times, but I'm going to do it for you, Marie.
Oh my god.
Well, I forgot.
Clint Eastwood? Jack
Ronald
Nicholson?
Reagan.
Oh.
Ronald Reagan.
Good one?
Well, I forgot.
Have you seen him on Futurama?
No, I'm not really a Futurama watcher. I've seen a couple of episodes, but don't really pay attention to it that much. It's just not really my thing.
That's fair.
Yeah.
All right, Marie, if you are comfortable doing so, would you please plug yourself again?
Such a crazy verb. Yeah, so you've heard me speak now for a while, and I'm probably still pretty cool, I think. I'm
We think you're cool.
Yeah.
Great.
All right.
So thanks to the 3 listeners who have listened in today. I appreciate your time and Martin. And so I'm Marie Delafont, and I'm co-host at Everyone's Agnostic. And you can check us out at everyone'sagnostic.com. We are on most platforms for podcasting, and we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and what else? We've got stickers.
You got stickers, but you don't have tattoos on your butts.
Bitch, I'm gonna get one.
Well, fine, you can. Well, we went last time I was in Chicago. We went and got tattoos on our butts together of our podcast logo.
Oh my god, that's so cool.
Yeah, and mine says "fuck you," and Matthew's has our tagline "fuck your god, god damn it." I thought that was too much for me, but
oh my god, that's so cool.
The pictures are posted on our Facebook page, by the way.
We should have stickers, and then we could get our listeners to put the stickers on their butts and send in pictures.
Yes.
All 3 of them?
Yeah, all 3. I'm telling you, we have at least probably 100, but we'll go with 3. Or we have 3 people that listen a lot. I don't know. They might just listen on repeat.
It's
Matthew.
just me. Yeah, it's me. You know, I just put it on repeat automatically, so it just plays a bunch of times. So.
Yeah. Yep. So come check us out on Everyone's Agnostic, and even if you are not a former religious person, a lot of people listen to our show who are atheists, and they enjoy learning about the experiences of former religious people. And moreover, I think kind of our narrative really does apply to most of humanity, because that's basically what we're talking about. So it's like, hey, we're not living out of the sacred scripture anymore. How do we join the universe really now? So I think a lot of what we say can be applied to other people if you find it interesting. So check it out, see if it's for you. If it's not, that's cool, bro. Keep listening over here. These guys are great too.
I'm not agnostic. I'm not an agnostic atheist. I'm a Gnostic atheist. Okay. God doesn't exist. Yeah, and so yeah. So
well, this has been a really great conversation, and I appreciate you being on the show, Marie.
It's been a pleasure to be here, and it's been a nice distraction from the drama that's been going on in my house today.
Well, thank you for having you, Marie. So yeah, come back on, bring Cass with you. And,
you're
one left, so
you're definitely welcome whenever you want to come back and talk about whatever.
Super fun to talk to you guys.
Cool.
All right, so this is Matthew, and for Eric, this has been Odd Atheist Friends, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.